Hi, everybody. Good evening. I'm Gloria Felch. I am co-founder and president of Take the Lead. And I want to welcome you to Take the Lead's monthly virtual happy hour. Tonight we have author and expert about all things related to time, Laura Vanderkam. I can hardly wait to talk with her. I tweeted this afternoon that I couldn't possibly have time on this webcast to ask her all the questions I want to know about time management, but I promise you we will prioritize your questions, and many of you have already started emailing or tweeting them into us. We will take as many as we possibly can in just a bit. Take the Lead's mission is to prepare, develop, inspire, and propel women to take their fair and equal share of leadership positions across every sector by 2025. And of course, in order to do that, we have to be able to manage a lot of things about our lives, and including our time, our family, our work, and all of the things that are important to us. So this is a very serious topic, and I'm delighted that we're able to bring it to you tonight. I hope you'll check out Take the Lead's website, taketheleadwomen.com, to get the latest on our courses, our workshops, our keynotes for you or your organization. And do remember that that URL is taketheleadwomen.com, not just Take the Lead, and so that you will get to the right place and you'll be able to find all the good stuff that we have to make available to you to help you reach your fair and equal share of whatever leadership positions you want to have in life. I want to tell you just a quick bit about our virtual happy hours. We bring you these free virtual happy hours. They're an example of one of our signature Take the Lead programs. It's called Take the Lead Presents. And our Take the Lead Presents programs are always inspiring women who not only inspire you, but also tell you and give you some very concrete, specific tips about how they do it, how they made it in this world. And you get to ask all the questions you always wanted to know from some of the women that you admire the most. Every month we have a new topic. I just want to remind you to go ahead and mark your calendar now for the second Wednesday of the month. Every month, you can just put it on your calendar every month for the rest of the year. They're at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and I realize that's a little early for virtual happy hour in some parts of the world, but hey, you know, anytime is a good time to kick back with a cup of tea or a glass of wine. It's always virtual happy hour somewhere, so you can just play like it is where you are, wherever you may be. A few quick advance notice for you about upcoming virtual happy hours. Next month we will have the super fabulous Manisha Thakur. She's the Director of Wealth Strategies for Women at the financial advisory firm Buckingham, and also the BAM Alliance. And she will tell us about actually the power of women in finance and investing, and how we can utilize the power we have to think about our own money, our own resources. She's fantastic. In November, my great friend Leslie Grossman, who may be the consummate networker I have ever known, will join us to discuss how you can use networking to create relationships that boost your career. And then in December, we'll have Suba Berry. Suba is the Vice President and General Manager of Working Mother Media. And it's just fabulous. You probably know Working Mother magazine. You may know some of their other publications, but Suba will have many, many interesting things to tell us about women who are moms in the workplace in particular. You can always go to our website, again, taketheleadwomen.com, and learn more about the great lineup that we have of speakers, and you can go ahead and sign up ahead of time for any of these programs. And by the way, we're always looking for ideas, so feel free to give us some thoughts if you are, there's a topic you'd particularly like us to speak about, or have a speaker on, or a particular speaker who has inspired you, and you think we should have her on our virtual happy hour. Starting last month, we started doing something a little bit different. I didn't know this, but my staff was kind of giving me away, and it turned out to be a lot of fun. I had a great chat with Heather Van Cura after last month's virtual happy hour. So here's the deal. When you register for our virtual happy hours in advance, you're automatically entered to win a free complimentary Google Hangout mentoring session with yours truly. So stay tuned, because at the end of this virtual happy hour, I'll get to announce this month's winner, and I'm looking forward to that. Many of you, I noticed on the sign up, found out about this virtual happy hour because you read Take the Lead this week. As you know, it's the one newsletter you can always count on for short, snappy, substantive, fun news about women and leadership and related kinds of topics. And it's done in a really cool digest form that people seem to really like. I get emails and comments every day from people who say how much they love Take the Lead this week. So if you are already subscribed to it, thank you. And if you like it, which you apparently do, tell a friend, or better yet, tell 10 friends, because we want to spread the word far and wide. So as I said before, please go ahead and start sending your questions in now. Some of you already have, for which we thank you very much. And but when you do, this is what you do. If you're sending in your questions now using the feature on the video chat, if you're looking at it on your computer, or your other device, right under the video box on your screen, you'll see a little box, and you put your name there and your location, and it's found right under the video stream, and you have to select that little pencil icon first, and then you type in your name and your location, and then you click OK. And then when you do that, we'll get your questions and we'll be able to answer it. You can also, if you prefer, you can tweet your question to @TakeLeadWomen, @TakeLeadWomen. So you can tweet your questions there, and we'll get them. We'll be following them, and we'll be able to get your questions there. So either way, we don't care. Just tell us what you want to know. If you are a Twitter fiend, as I am, we'd appreciate it if you'd use the hashtag 25 not 95. We started that hashtag to just remind everyone that the World Economic Council may say it will take till 2025 for women to reach leadership parity, but we want to upend that. We want to disrupt that pattern. We think this is a great moment for women, and that if we just really do things right, we can actually reach leadership parity by 25, not 95. So hashtag 25, not 95. Use that if you would, and spread the word. The Twitter handle, I already told you, @TakeLeadWomen. There's also Laura's is @L Vanderkam, and mine is @GloriaFelt. So stay connected by following us on Facebook and LinkedIn, and @TakeLeadWomen. Take the Lead Women on Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm getting tongue-tied. I'm so excited I can hardly talk tonight. So we also have a community circle on Mighty Bell, and it's also Take the Lead Women there. So you can continue the conversation with us anywhere, any hour of the day or night. We want to know what you think, and we'll be delighted to hear more from you at any time. So are you about ready to hear from Laura? I sure am. So grab your favorite cocktail, grab a glass of wine, a cup of tea, and let's start this conversation that I know you have been waiting for, and so have I. So Laura, greetings.
Thank you for having me.
Laura, let me give you a quick intro, and then I'm going to ask you to tell us more about yourself. Laura is a blogger. She's the author of a whole bunch of books, and she is a speaker who goes all over the country telling people what she's learned. And right now, she's written a number of books on time management and productivity, including her latest. And I really love this title, Laura. I Know How She Does It. Ha! I know how she does it. How successful women make the most of their time. We heard about Laura the first time when she spoke at a conference that one of our staffers attended, and this young woman came back from this conference totally blown away by you, Laura. She said, you have got to have Laura do a virtual happy hour for us. So we're thrilled that you're here today. Can't wait to hear what you have to say and your fresh views on juggling work and life and work and all the things that we're all dealing with every day. So a big Take the Lead welcome to you.
Thank you.
Laura, you know, the first question I'd like to ask you is, before we jump into the whole time management issues, Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us how you got to be you. What brought you to where you are, and what you're doing in your own life?
Well, I've pretty much always been a journalist. That's what I started doing out of college, and looking for different topics to write about. I wound up writing a lot about how successful people live their lives. And as I was doing that, and as I was interested in how I was spending my own time, I wanted to see, well, what is it that successful people do differently? Because some people have more money, but no one has more time. I mean, we all have the exact same 168 hours in a week. So when you meet these people who are able to juggle work and life very well, who, you know, the kinds, they have multiple kids and hobbies, and they're succeeding beyond, you know, any wildest dreams at work, and like, of course, they're running marathons and launching nonprofits and all this too. And he's like, well, they have the exact same amount of time as the rest of us. So what are they doing? How are they making the best use of their hours to achieve the life of their dreams? So I began to study this question, and most of my books have come out of this. This particular last one, though, I Know How She Does It, came out of an observation I had that so much of the literature about women and work and life is profoundly negative. It is looking at what I call these recitations of dark moments. And I'm sure many of us on this call have been guilty of this, where we are basically attempting to one-up each other in terms of telling stories of the crazy. And I've done this, and I can't top others. I mean, I love to tell the story of getting a pitch from an editor who's trying to collect essays for a book of such recitations of dark moments. I mean, talk about a downer of a book. But one of them was getting a text message from a sick child while flying an F-16 over Afghanistan. Okay, like that's like the example of the crazy. And so there's all this like stress, and of course it leads to this conclusion that life is unsustainable, life is not doable. Success at work requires harsh trade-offs at home. But over the years, I've had a ton of successful women share their schedules with me, and as I do corporate workshops, many of the women who are high up the chain at work, they have kids. I look at their time logs. Their lives don't look that bad. Their lives actually look pretty good. You know, they're finding time for family, for themselves, for sleep, for friends. And so I undertook this book to really get some data on how successful women spend their time and what we can all learn from this. So this is not a book of recitations of dark moments. It is a book that looks half hour by half hour at 1,001 days in the lives of professional women and their families, and finds that they have pretty balanced lives.
Isn't that is so interesting in the face of the meme that we hear all the time that I think is the world's stupidest meme. I'm sorry, I hate to just say it that way. The whole having it all. I mean, whoever started that? It feels like a cruel plot to me. Where did that come from? Whoever.
I don't know, but it clicks really well. I can tell you that it clicks really well online, and so that's you know, once you know that, it keeps getting repeated a lot.
So that's it. It's clickbait, huh?
It's clickbait. It is total clickbait.
Oh, gosh. Well, I mean, you know, whoever asked a man if he was balancing his work and his life? Did anybody ever ask a man that question? Why do women get that question and men don't?
It's a very good question, and I certainly hope men will be asked it. I have been lucky to be at a couple of speeches by male CEOs where somebody has actually asked that question, and I like want to stand up and cheer every time. Like, woohoo, we got this guy to answer this question. But yeah, I think that you know, it's for whatever reason, women, no matter how professionally successful they are, no matter how much they are doing to support their families financially, no matter what contribution they are making to the larger world, they are still judging themselves on the home front against some idealized version of what they perceive a stay-at-home mom to do. And it's not like a real stay-at-home mom. Like, it's often not like their sister who's a stay-at-home mom that they're comparing themselves to. It's this idealized version. And if you're not doing that in addition to having the six-figure job that's saving the world, I guess you're not having it all. But I think that that's kind of a silly definition. If we want to define having it all as having a career you enjoy, and a family that you enjoy and love as well, and having enough time to nurture yourself, then I think it is quite possible to have it all. And in fact, there are very many women and men who do.
Well, it seems to me that if we could put that framework aside and really start thinking about this question the way you're thinking about it, in terms of, if I'm hearing you correctly, it's what means a lot to you? What do you care about? What is it that you will be happier if you spend your time on than if you don't? It seems like it would be better for the whole world. I mean, as you point out, time is a choice, and we have a choice about how we use it. Would you talk about that? I thought that was a very profound comment, and I'd love for you to just really expound on that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, time is pretty much a blank slate. If you think about the next week, there is nothing in it right now. I mean, it's blank. Moving forward, the next 168 hours, 24 times 7, it is a blank slate. Eventually, we're going to be on the other side of it, and it will be filled with something. But for the large part, what it's filled with is up to us as a result of choices we're making now and choices we've made in the past. And the thing about choices is that if we've made them a certain way, we can often make them a different way if we decide that that's really important to us. And so granted, there may be, horrible consequences to spending the 168 hours differently, like just not showing up at work is an option. I mean, you could do it. There's probably bad things that will happen if you do that. But reminding ourselves that time is a choice gives us more authority over our own lives. And we can start thinking about what deserves to be in our time and how we can make steps to fill it. And I like to use some of the language I got from one of the busiest people I ever interviewed, successful businesswoman with a large family as well. And she told me, rather than say, I don't have time, I say, it's not a priority.
Ooh.
Because that is really more accurate language. I mean, I could tell you that I don't have time to dust my blinds, but that's not true. I mean, if somebody offered to pay me $100,000 to dust my blinds, I'd probably figure out a way to fit it into my schedule. But then that's not going to happen. And so I can acknowledge that it's not about time. It's about priority. It's about what I want to do. And if you think about life that way, then you can start being a bit more honest with yourself about what is true, about what you can put in your time, and what is just a story.
Would you actually tell someone that's not a priority? I'm playing in my head what I would tell someone else if I were declining to do something.
Well, I do stop myself from saying I don't have time. I usually give a reason why I won't be doing something, whether it's that I've chosen to do something else at the same time. If I've decided that I'm committed enough with other things I have going on, then I will say that. But I find that it also stops me from saying things that aren't really true either. I mean, if my kid is asking me to read a story and I say, I don't have time to read you a story right now. I think that's, I should say to myself, like, it's not a priority to read you a story right now. And if that's true, and I need to acknowledge that and say why that is, that there's something else that's very important that I must do right now. But if it's not true, then I got to own up to that and say, like, okay, well, it's not that I don't have time. I'm choosing not to do it. And do I want to be the one who's choosing not to do it, or is this something that I do want to do right now?
Mm-hmm. That's almost really tough to take that level of responsibility, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, I think it helps by setting us free too, because then you don't become a victim of how your time goes. I mean, we have all this idea of like time is happening to us, so I have to do this, I have to do that. There's very, very little that you have to do. I mean, you have to eat and sleep and make sure that the people who are dependent on you do the same. But beyond that, a lot is more negotiable.
Well, I want to go ahead and start taking some of the questions that are coming in. And the first one is from Charlotte in Florida. She says, I'm an early career researcher, writing papers, attending conferences, and searching for an international job. I'm also a mother of 3, a wife, and a friend. How can I ever find time for myself? I keep dreaming of things I used to do and enjoy so much, like playing the piano, dancing, and writing novels, and I never have the time. Is it just the fact of life that I will have to wait 10 years for my young kids to be teenagers and then I can find time for myself again? Or is it something I should struggle and fight for?
I think it's something to struggle and fight for. It's interesting that Charlotte defined herself as a wife, mother, and friend. She's also a person, and as a person, she is entitled to do things that are exciting to her, not just in relationship to other people. And so, I find that the first thing to think about is that the time is probably there. I mean, there are people who are doing that sort of thing and who are finding time to sing or write novels. And so the question is not, is the time there? Is that how can I choose to use that time for the things that are important to me? And one way to do this, I like the idea of putting first things first. Every Friday afternoon, I find Friday afternoon is a good time for this. Think about the next week and make a short priority list that has 3 categories: career, relationships, self. Right? So 3 categories. And you list your top couple priorities in each area. But the thing of making the list this way is that by having 3 categories, you recognize that there should be something in each of these 3 categories. And then as you're looking at your calendar for the next week, you say, well, I've got these 2 things in the self category that are priorities. I'm going to look over the entire next 168 hours. If you can't find 2 20-minute slots for something that's in the top self category, over the next 168 hours, then something's massively out of whack and needs to change. But I'm guessing most people could find that time if they truly wanted to do so.
Okay, I'm going to try to take your advice so that I can get some of the writing done that I keep saying I don't have time to do.
It's not a priority.
It's not a priority. I'm good, but I need to make it a priority because it's very important. Okay, so Amy in New York asked the question that I bet you hear all the time. She says, I struggle with the feeling like I haven't done enough. What are the ways to cope with this so that I can feel more confident in what I accomplish?
Well, I'm a big fan of, like I said, making the priority list, and then making it a very limited list. Like, there's only so much we can get done in any given day, and there's absolutely no point in making a to-do list with stuff on it that you're not going to do. I mean, what's the point of that? Like, it's still not done, so you may as well not have put it on in the first place because you've just made it feel defeating as opposed to this source of victory every time you look at your to-do list. So make it as short as possible. I mean, 3 to 5 things a day is really quite a bit, because if you're doing 3 to 5 things a day, I mean, that's 15 to 25 things a week, and 15 to 25 things a week is what, 750 to whatever in a year. I mean, it's a lot of stuff, and it helps to remind you of yourself of this. I mean, there's this app out there that I've seen. It's called I Done This, I think, and basically what it is you share with your team every day what you've done. So it's not necessarily a to-do list, it's a to-done list. At the end of the day, you're sharing around, like, I did this. We can all go, yay, I did this, and everyone pats each other on the back. And what it is you do what you do, but surrounding what you're doing with a sense of accomplishment as opposed to a sense of inadequacy is a great way to shift your mindset. Because, I mean, again, you've done what you've done, so you may as well change how you think about it.
Great piece of advice. Great piece of advice. Let me take one more question that's already come in. Ellen asks, would you please comment on elder care responsibilities? Any advice or suggested resources to handle these kinds of responsibilities while managing several other challenges, including job searching while unemployed?
Yes. Well, those are a lot of challenges.
A lot
of challenges. But I can't really speak to the elder care per se. I do have 4 small children that I have taken care of, and there's some similarities. There's obviously key differences as well in terms of elder care involving people who more have their own histories and interactions with you that you have to respect over time, whereas the 6-month-old has to do what I tell them. So it's kind of a but the thing with it is you have to make sure, what are the things aside from this thing that can be all-consuming, and caring for another person who's dependent on you can in fact be all-consuming. But what are, say, the 3, again, that limited to-do list, like 3 to 5 things I need to do today. Make it very short. Maybe it's only 2 things beyond life maintenance. But in the whole course of a day, there's probably a chance to do those 2 things. And if you choose them well, then you'll be able to keep moving forward even as the rest of life is somewhat chaotic around you. And I've certainly done that when I've been in the newborn stage with all of my children, that I say, well, okay, today I am going to make this 1 phone call and write this 1 blog post. And, at some point in the day, the baby's napping, everything's quiet, and I can get those two things done. And then I go, yay, rah, me. Like, I did those two things. And then I can relax. And as opposed to setting myself up like I'm going to write my, great American novel while I have a month-old baby. I mean, that's just not going to happen. And it's the same thing. When we have massive demands on our time, we have to shift our mindset and say, well, right now is a season of life where I'm focusing on this relationship that is very important to me, whether it's caring for an elderly parent or caring for a child. And there are a few other things I'm going to do, but I have to acknowledge that this is a big thing right now. And I have to give it the respect it deserves. And I am going to keep moving forward on some things, but I'm also going to acknowledge that this is a season where maybe not everything is quite as possible as it was.
Well, I'm listening intently because I find that when I start making my lists, and I start out in the frame of mind that you're suggesting, and then I'll think, oh, but then I also need to do X, and then I also need to do Y, and all of a sudden I'm looking at a list that's very, very long. So what do I do?
Well, then ask yourself, well, do I really have to do X? Could somebody else do X? I mean, there's a staff there that maybe could take on X. Or, there's maybe X is something for a different month. Or X is something that could be done perhaps to a different standard than I am accustomed to doing X to. And maybe there's a way that I can get 3 other things off my plate so I can devote more attention to X. But sort of triaging the list that way to force yourself to ask what is most important. And I know I overreach too. I mean, I described the newborn stage where I'm adding like 2 or 3 things and I always feel like very accomplished. And then right around like 6 weeks, I'm like thinking I should be able to do everything, and then I go whoom, right back. Reality hits me, and I have to go back to my limited sort of 2 to 3 things. But you move on, and eventually life gets back to normal.
Well, as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking about the larger cultural context of this, which is that as women, we are socialized to think about what other people think of us, and we generally are predisposed to want to help, to want to support other people, to want to, to do things for other people. And that in and of it, what you're suggesting is being able to really, truly, and this is not using it as a cliche, truly be able to set boundaries. We like to say yes. We like to say yes. But what you're suggesting is the wisdom of saying no.
Well, it's saying no to the right things, because there are some things that I believe in saying yes to the big stuff, right? Like the problem of saying yes to too much little stuff is that it forces your hand, and then you feel like you can't take on the big stuff. So you've got the situation where someone's like, I can't take on this new big project that reports to the CEO because then when will I edit the department newsletter? I mean, okay, come on. Like, think about it. Say no to the little stuff so that you can say yes to the big stuff. You want to leave yourself the space and the openness to be able to seize the big opportunities that come to you. And the problem with saying yes to too many little things is then it forces your hand.
Yeah. One of the things that you said in something that I read is that analyzing how you spend time is the best antidote to guilt. What do you mean by that?
Well, so when I did this project, I had women with big jobs. Everyone in the project that I did for I Know How She Does It, who kept track of their time for me, earned at least 6 figures a year. So they had big jobs. They had kids at home. So we have this story out there that if I work full time, I will never see my kids. And we often do not question this. Like, we do not question that, like, I work full time. Can't you hear the word full is in there? Clearly there's no time for anything else because it's full time. So people tell themselves this story. And then they'd keep their time log, and they'd see that this is just not true. I mean, there are 168 hours in a week. If you are working 50 hours a week, which is, by the way, a lot more than the average person works, even if they think differently, we tend to overestimate how many hours we work. But let's say you're working 50 hours a week. You're sleeping 8 hours a night, which, again, most people claim not to do.
Oh.
That would leave 62 hours for other things. And what many women were finding is they were honestly spending just about every single one of those 62 hours around their offspring. Like, they had moved stuff around to the degree that they were, like, constantly with their kids, but they were not giving themselves any credit for it because in their mind, I work full time, ergo, I never see my kids. I had a woman have a conversation with me the other day who's a lawyer She told me two things. One is that I don't see enough of my son. And then second, gosh, my baby wakes up so early in the morning. Like, it's crazy. He's up at 5:30 a.m. I'm like, wait a minute. All right, so he wakes up at 5:30 a.m. What time do you leave for work? She left for work at 8. So she was spending 2.5 hours in the morning with her son. And she was not giving herself credit for any of this because it's like, oh, I'm going off to work where I work full time, so I never see my kids. It's just these stories we tell ourselves. And so by keeping track of the time, the truth sets us free. It keeps us from telling ourselves stories that are not true.
Wow. Laura Vanderkam, you are giving us lots of great information and advice tonight, and I thank you here at Take the Lead's virtual happy hour. And I want to just say, again, to remind people that you can submit your questions by writing them in the chat box right under the video stream on your website, on your computer. And you can tweet them to us at Take Lead Women. And just remember, if you want to send it to us through your computer, to look under the video box, and right under there you'll see a little chat box, and there'll be a pencil icon. You take that, you put in your name and type in your name and your location, and then you can type in your question, and we will get it post haste, and we will ask Laura, who is telling us all kinds of very useful information and interesting information about how we can use our time most efficiently and effectively. And in that vein, one of the things that we as women always need to do is to take a little time out to learn things for ourselves, to improve ourselves, to help ourselves become better leaders and managers, and whatever it is that is important to us that we choose to put into our time frame, as Laura has said. So I hope that perhaps some of you might be interested in taking a look at taketheleadwomen.com, our website, frequently for our event updates, and to see whether one of our courses or maybe you want to be part of our growing group of leaders who are doing workshops and keynotes and webcasts and are available to come to you, to your organization, to your professional association, to your company. Take the Lead can provide you with training in our 9 leadership power tools to advance your career. To help women move through that leadership pipeline and break barriers, our training is actually one that cracks the code, because it does 2 things that are unique. One is to help women embrace their own power, the power that we already have, to have a better relationship with power. And that's one of the things that you need before you can say yes and no to the right things in your time management, it sounds like from talking to Laura. And then secondly, that you don't have to adapt yourself always to the system that you're in. You can always also lead the change to make that system a better place for you, and probably the men in it will thank you too. We'll be teaching our signature online certificate course starting in February. So if you're interested in that, take a look at our website, taketheleadwomen.com, and it's called 9 Power Tools to Advance Your Career. It's 4 weeks online on your own time with personal interaction with me. So if you're one of those people who doesn't like to have to go somewhere for a class, it might be just your ticket. Okay. Gosh, we have more questions, so let's see. Which ones look most interesting here, Laura? Holly in New Hampshire says, I loved your comment about women trying to top each other with dark moments. Why do we do this? How do we change this?
Yeah, I think we should just refuse to participate in the misery Olympics. I mean, no one wins in the misery Olympics.
Misery Olympics. That is cool.
Like, even if you win the gold medal in the misery Olympics, you're just the most miserable. I mean, like, what does that do for you? I honestly don't understand. I mean, we do this at parties. It's like somebody's describing some horrible situation. It's like, yes, your life sounds horrible. We should be friends. I don't know if that's how we feel like it's going to happen, but I think that it's very trite to talk about gratitude, but I think there's so much going on in the world that is so incredibly awful, and we are so amazingly blessed as women in the countries where we live, where we have as many opportunities as we do. And really, this angst is about, that things are not perfect. And in many cases, many of us have very good lives. You can have stressful moments within a very good life. And that's how I like to look at it, that, we have to look at the whole mosaic of time. Like, there may be a few tiles here and there that are stressful, but we don't have to define ourselves. Life doesn't have to be the story where these stressful things happen, ergo something must change. Nothing has to change. You can such is the human condition. No one is entitled to a stress-free life. If there's something that you can change, that you want to change, then by all means, figure out a way to change it. But you can also just acknowledge that some days just suck. I mean, like that's the reality. And
that would be a good T-shirt, actually.
Some days just suck. Such is the human condition. Leave it at that. Nothing needs to change. And so I challenge people, especially, I think where this also comes up, though, so it's fine that we have these sad stories at play dates, like whatever, that is what it is. But I think it has a problem in the professional context where I sometimes hear young women say, well, I look at the senior women at my firm and there's no one whose life I want. And I think that senior women in companies and organizations have a duty to highlight the diversity of their experiences. That if you are just always talking about, oh, I came home late because my flight was delayed and I missed X, Y, Z, or complaining about, this call ran over and then now I have to go back to Buffalo and I was just in Atlanta the other day. Like, this is sending young women a message that this is all there is. It helps to also talk about, like, oh, we had a great parent-teacher conference the other day, and, I enjoyed kicking back with my husband and watching whatever you watched the other night. I mean, I understand why people don't do this, because there's some evidence that, talking about your personal life at work is occasionally problematic. But I think if you're already near the top, you can afford to take that risk and to show that there is more to life than just these dark moments.
Well, related to that, you've also said that higher powered jobs give you more autonomy in and of themselves. And because, first of all, you probably have more money, so you can outsource some things. And so why do we tell women to go for lower powered and lower paid jobs in order to reduce the stress in their lives, when in truth it's probably just the opposite? And as somebody who's, we're working at Take the Lead to get women to leadership parity, and that's one of the biggest barriers that exists, I think, and it's a barrier within ourselves, and that is thinking that if we go for that higher job, it's going to be worse for us personally.
Yeah, well, patriarchy is insidious, right? I mean, it tells us to tell ourselves stories that serve its purpose. But yeah, no, I think this is the reality that, and Sheryl Sandberg pointed this out in Lean In, that, having the big job is the big job is the one where you can make the meeting happen on your time frame. You're the one running it. It will end when you want it to run. Mm-hmm. Like, if somebody needs to go to Buffalo, you can send somebody else to Buffalo if you want to send somebody else to Buffalo. And because these high-powered jobs are the ones that give you more flexibility. Most of the women in my study who are all earning six figures had vast amounts of flexibility in their job. Even if they were jobs that didn't seem like they would be flexible, they were at a position where they, no one knows, are you with a client at 10 a.m. or are you at your son's preschool? I don't know. You don't know. I mean, you don't have to talk about it if you don't want to. I hope people will talk about it, but, they sometimes wouldn't, and just, if the work gets done, it gets done. So these jobs offer flexibility, autonomy, and they give you the kind of resources that make life easier. Because one of the things that really pushes a lot of women out of the workforce or into lesser sort of jobs is worries about childcare, and like, is my kid, can I afford good childcare? Are my children being well cared for while I'm working? That's a real issue. It is a real issue, and people, if you can't afford quality care, like, you're going to be stressed about it, and the stress is going to lead you to perform less well at work, and you're going to make choices that are going to limit your career over time, and then it becomes this vicious cycle, because then you don't get the promotion, so you don't get the raise, and so you don't get ahead in this, in a way that will enable you to make it all work. Whereas, the high-paying job does, in fact, allow you to ease a lot of those worries. So I say, don't fear the big job. The big job is the one that makes work-life balance possible. And in fact, most of the women in my study worked very reasonable hours. The average in my study was 44 hours a week. Remember, this is women earning six figures. They worked 44 hours a week. That's more than 40, but it's not a lot more than 40. I mean, it's 4 hours more than 40. I think you can probably, find 4 hours here and there. So there's pretty big payoffs to being willing to consider just a little bit of extra time on the margin.
Very, very interesting. Cindy in Arizona has a question. While you're on vacation, do you recommend that we disconnect from work completely or stay in touch a little bit each day?
I think this is honestly up to you, and this is a different answer for different people. So if you truly are feeling burnt out and need to disconnect, then by all means, leave the phone at home. Like, don't even tempt yourself. Just go, turn it off, give it to your spouse with strict instructions not to hand it over, and go, relax and see how it goes. If you're a different personality, or maybe you're running your own business, then I think that it's up to you if you want to figure out a way to make it work within your life. And what I tend to do is find a time, maybe 20 minutes in the morning every other day, to do a little bit of checking in, and then turn it off the rest of the day. And I find that that's a good balance for me. I also think that being on vacation is a good time to think about like the big picture of work. I don't think work is a negative thing. I mean, to me, work is a way that I profitably live out my interests. So why wouldn't I want to have some of that on vacation? Like, I can think about interesting pieces I'd like to write, or book concepts I'd like to explore. So I think that how you wish to put it into your time off is entirely up to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know that for me, it's more stressful not to check in for just a few minutes every day. It's way more stressful than not to check in. I mean, I just go crazy if I don't, if I feel like I know it's all stacking up. I get very efficient if I can go through everything in 5 or 10 minutes in the morning or in the evening. Then I feel okay. But
as long as you don't let it bleed into everything else. I mean, what you don't want to be is in that bad stage where you're not really relaxing, but you're not really working well either. You're just sort of going back and forth between the two. But I have to say, I mean, honestly, I have 4 little kids. Vacations aren't relaxing anyway, so it's why not?
That's going to be the most tweeted comment in this entire webcast. I can assure you that is going to be it. So this is a question with a little bit of a different angle. It's how do you deal with procrastination?
So I think this is a good question, because there's a couple of ways to deal with it. One, if it's something you absolutely have to do, there are ways to kind of psych yourself into doing it. I mean, you can schedule it first thing in the morning. We tend to have the most willpower then. You can sort of ease yourself into it, like start in the middle and then sort of do a little bit around the edges until all of a sudden you have most of something there. But I think it's also a good occasion to reflect on it, because sometimes when we don't want to do something, there's a reason we don't want to do something. It's telling ourselves, something about ourselves and something about our career direction. And if you truly don't want to do something, maybe it's not the right direction for your career. Or your life, if it's a personal project that you really don't feel like doing. And so listen to that. And if that's the case, then ask yourself, well, how can I make a change so I don't wind up doing this again in the future if I really don't want to do it? And then once you've figured out that change, then it becomes this just small thing that you need to do before this new phase of life where you're not doing whatever it is that you really don't want to do. Now, obviously, there's some things that we just are kind of dragging our feet a little bit because they're in pursuit of a larger life goal. And so you do want to do them. You just are feeling a little low motivation. And so then, you use the various tricks, like doing it first thing in the morning, or promising yourself a reward afterwards, or having an accountability partner to check in and make sure you've done it.
What's your own personal demon when it comes to time management? I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, God, she sounds so perfect. But you know what? I'll bet you that there's something that isn't quite that way with you. What is your own personal demon?
Well, so the thing about I write a lot about different topics, and so I have to do research, and research sends us off on wild internet goose chases, and I spend a lot of time on the internet telling myself that I'm working, whereas in fact I'm just doing whatever. I'm just flitting back and forth from page to page, doing nothing in particular. And I try to recognize when I'm doing this and do something else that's a little bit more actually relaxing. Like I'm taking a break. I'm just not being honest about it. So I should go out for a walk or, get a cup of coffee or whatever I need to do. So I'd say I definitely do a lot of that.
Oh, but you find such interesting things when you go down the rabbit hole, don't you?
You do find
Yes,
interesting.
you find very interesting things. Okay. Well, Susan in Arizona asks, do you have strategies for establishing and maintaining effective boundaries with bosses, spouses, and others with whom you didn't previously have effective boundaries? And then they get a little surprised when all of a sudden you're saying, wait, this is my barrier, this is my boundary. You can't go beyond it to access my time or talent or whatever it is.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think that we teach people over time how to treat us, and part of maintaining boundaries is just actually maintaining them. Like, you can't give in to the whining. I mean, what I've sort of noticed with my kids is, like, the whining happens when they think they can get it, and if I give in after the whining, then they've learned that it works. And so I either need to just give in right away, which is fine. You can choose to give in right away if you want. But if they know that this sort of, like, it can keep getting tested, and it can, then you just need to say no and stick to it, like, to the death, and see what happens. I mean, honestly, it's your life, and so you have to be the one who's happy with it. And even if people are close to you, that doesn't give them an automatic right to any amount of your time and your attention and your talent. You have a right to establish your own ideas too. So if you let's take a hypothetical example that your husband is used to you sitting on the couch with him at night watching whatever TV shows he wants to watch, and he wants you to sit there with him and watch it. And you have decided that there are other things you would like to do with your evening, be it go out with friends or go down that internet rabbit hole or go to the gym or something else. And he is just like, what's going on? We always watch TV at night. Don't you want to be here with me? And then you can say, well, I of course love spending time with you, but there are other things that I would also like to do. So I have proposed something else, proposed a solution, like, why don't we say Tuesdays and Thursdays are our TV nights? And I will happily do that. But then the other nights are ones that I'm going to do something different. And you're welcome to come do, if it's something that we could do together, you could try that as well. But you don't automatically get to dictate every night.
Is the secret of that the smile that you have on your face? You
Smiles go along. I mean, confrontation doesn't have to be this knockdown, drag out thing. I mean, being nice and sweet is underrated as a strategy. But often, a smile gets a long way. I mean, there's some people must be told firmly, but if you can maintain a calm and happy demeanor, it often goes a long way.
Yeah. I was just thinking of fantasizing, just a little fantasy here. So tonight, there is, somewhere in this world, there is a webcast for men about time management and balancing work and family life. What would they be talking about?
Well, the interesting thing is, I do think that they have these discussions. I think they don't, they don't have panel discussions necessarily where, we all get together, we have, this recitation of dark moments thing going on. But I mean, I've overheard my husband talking with colleagues, about somebody who's just had a new baby and he's trying to figure out, his wife had a baby and he's trying to figure out, is there a way I can change the way I work in order to make the pieces of my life fit together? And they'll have these discussions about it. They're not using the phrase work-life balance, but they're having these discussions. There was a fascinating study that came out, Aaron Reed, I think, Boston University, looked at men at a high-powered consulting firm and found that some men were quietly finding ways to integrate their family life into being there, for the things that they wanted to be there for, and maintain sort of reasonable work weeks, but look differently. And again, it's that you just don't necessarily talk about it. Like, you live the life you want. You ask for forgiveness rather than permission. And I think that is something that women can learn from men. Often when women are thinking that work-life balance is a little bit off, we get this idea like, okay, I must go in and negotiate an official flexible schedule. I must go in and negotiate an official part-time schedule. But the problem inherent in this word negotiate is that you're giving something up in order to get what you want. And usually all you really want is to like move work around a little bit on dimensions of time and place. So like come in a little bit later so you can bring your kid to work. And like you're happy to make up the work at night. Like that's not a problem. You'll do it after the kids go to bed, but you just want to move it around a little bit. So why should you give up anything? I mean, you're still getting it done. So why should you give up anything? Don't negotiate. Just do it. And I mean, if you're called on the carpet, then you can figure out, you know, okay, we'll come up with a different solution. But most of the time you're not going to be. And I think that men operate from this assumption that I don't have to negotiate. I don't have to ask for permission. I'm going to do it. If I have to explain myself, I will. But it's my life, and I'm going to live how I want.
So we can definitely learn from that. We can definitely learn from that. I want to ask you this one question that just came in. In your research, did you find any difference between the way full-time working women versus part-time or those who work from home handle time management?
Well, so one interesting thing I found, which I'm not sure if people really want to hear this, but there were a handful of women in my study who were working part-time, and basically all of them were working over 35 hours a week. Oh. So they were on official part-time schedules, but they were working full-time hours because there was just this part-time job creep. Like, people aren't going to not call you on your day off, like, unless you set the absolute strict boundaries, like where you refuse to even pick up your phone or look at your email. And most people weren't going to do that because they had job responsibilities, and they also were trying to be accommodating. And so they had this inevitable part-time job creep where they're basically working full-time hours but not getting paid for them. Whereas other people in similar industries were working similar hours on full-time schedules. So I think that there's something to be said for, again, working the way you want to work. Slack when you need to slack. Everyone slacks at work to some degree. It's just maybe you're doing it because you have a particular thing going on in your family life that you need to deal with. Other people are slacking because, I don't know, it's the NCAA tournament going on. Like, there's all kinds of reasons that people slack at work. So maybe you have to slack for a little bit, but you'll pick it back up later. So there's that. I think working from home is great. I work from home. The key thing about working from home is that you get rid of the commute, and commute is absolutely wasted time for most people. It is completely 100% wasted. Some people figure out ways to listen to inspiring podcasts, and that's great, or like music that ramps you up. Like, don't talk on the phone. You're going to drive your car off the road. It's honestly, it's very dangerous. I don't recommend doing that, even though I know people do it. So getting rid of the commute can buy you hours a week, and it also buys you a lot of energy for your actual work. It's this funny thing that, like, a commute makes you feel like you've already done something when all you've really done is like show up at work on time. Like, you haven't actually done anything, and so working from home gets rid of that. Now I understand that there's obviously we have colleagues, and it really does help to see people face to face from time to time. So this doesn't have to be an either or thing, but I think, for many jobs, information jobs, 5 days a week in the office is overkill. I mean, figuring out a way to work from home 2 days a week is a great balance.
Well, Laura, I know that you have promised that you're going to give our watchers and listeners some very specific practical tools and tips. That's one of the things that Take the Lead always does. We don't want to just talk about the problems, we want to talk about the solutions. And I understand you have some takeaways for people to help them with their time management.
Sure. I think the first takeaway, if you want to use your time better, is figure out exactly how you're using it now. There's a time log that I use. It's just a spreadsheet, but just try keeping track of your time for a week. And so you can actually see where the time really goes. I mean, add it up. Most people work a little bit less than they think. They often sleep a little bit more than they think, which is very exciting. There is time people can see that they could have for leisure if they chose to repurpose things that they are doing. And so that's very exciting to see that. I also tell people, try thinking about what you want to do more of with your time. When it comes to time, we often think about how we're going to save minutes here and there, and then somehow we're going to assemble these saved minutes and use those saved minutes to build the life we want. And it really doesn't work that way. Now, you don't build the life you want by saving time. You build the life you want, and then time saves itself, because other stuff just doesn't matter when you're filling your time with the things that deserve to be there. So think about what deserves to be there. Make a good long list. I challenge people to try to make a list of like 100 things you want to do more of with your time, because the first third probably pretty easy, but the last third is not. But you'll learn a lot about yourself and things you might want to try. And as you start filling your time with these things, it's amazing how other stuff kind of naturally takes less time.
Laura, can people find out more about these tips on your website, and do you want to tell them how they can find you?
They absolutely can find me on my website. And I am very excited about the fact that they can find me on my website right now, because my website has been down for the last 2 weeks, and it is now operational as of today. So, yay.
Just in time.
Yes, lauravanderkam.com. It is up and running. Please come visit me there. I blog close to daily about time and career and life and family, all those topics. You can also email me if you want me to just send you a copy of the spreadsheet. Normally you have to subscribe to my email list, which I'd love if you do, but I won't make you. Just email me lvanderkam@yahoo.com and I'll send you one. And I look forward to connecting. Fantastic.
Well, I know you're going to hear from a lot of people, and I highly recommend your book. I Know How She Does It. How Successful Women. I recommend it too highly. And this is basically at any stage of your life. This is a very valuable book to have, full of all kinds of useful tips and tools to figure things out. So Laura, as we close up here, what is your personal go-to song or quote that gets you powered up to go achieve leadership parity by #25 not 95?
Oh, gosh. I knew you were going to ask about the song, so I came up with a song, which is I love listening to Aretha Franklin, R-E-S-P-E-C-T. I'm sure everyone says that.
Yes.
But there's nothing that, you just sort of dancing around like, oh, yeah, this is Take Control, that sort of song.
Can't get better than that. Can't get better than that. Oh, gosh. Laura Vanderkam, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
This has been just an extraordinary hour with lots of great conversation. And, again, I just think that your whole attitude about managing life and time and work and kids and all the things that we're all dealing with, the fact that you're happy and you're doing it with a smile says as much as anything else could. We can all do it. We can do it if you can do it. I'm sure we can. A few just final announcements. First of all, this month's winner of the complimentary one-on-one Google Hangout with yours truly, the mentoring session, is Ashley Heron from Tennessee. So Ashley, we will be in touch with you very soon to set up a time, and I look forward to talking with you. A few real quick final announcements. First, just to say a huge thank you to everybody who's been with us tonight. Thanks so much. And remember, next month, October 14th, Manisha Thakur will come talk to us about how we can start now having financial health and power. Very important topic. Contact taketheleadwomen.com anytime to schedule a keynote or workshop for your group or company. Take a quick look at our online certificate course that'll be provided again in January. I'd love to have all of you on it, everybody out there. I have more fun with that course than anything, so I'd love to see all of you. And don't forget to connect with Take the Lead every day on social media. Here are all of our handles again. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, all that stuff. You know that drill. See you next month, and until then, power to you, and keep on taking the lead.